Hello! So, welcome to the Artiki. Today we're going to be making a sign for my Artiki. I'm going to put it on the wall back here behind me on the tiki bar itself. So, all I did is I went into a drawing program and used some lettering, manipulated it a bit, did a little flame kind of drawing sort of thing up there, roughed in a shape of a kind of battered wood plank kind of a shape behind it, kind of. Then, as you can tell, I printed it. Had to do several sheets because it's a little bit too big for my printer. Then I cut out the outside. Got myself some insulation foam from a hardware store here, and this just came in a 2x2 foot kind of thing. I think it was about that big, but it comes in 4x8 sheets. You can make really big stuff. So as you can tell, I've left some lines here so I can cut it for you here in just a moment to show you what it looks like. But the basic idea is I just traced it and I'm going to cut it. I love using my new hot wire tool here. This is, I think, the biggest one on the market. Usually they're about yay big, kind of a throat in there, but this one I wanted to be big because you can tell I can do large things that go way out into the back here. So it's really nice for that. Has a really good guide here so I can cut nice straight lines if I want to. Has a plate that I can attach to it right there, move it up to whatever size diameter I need. Has a little spike on it here that I can put foam onto. Stuff some foam onto it. Rotate it around. Whoops. I rotate it around and it'll cut a nice perfect circle. Depending on the angle, I can readjust this to make it this cut at a different angle or something, so I can make cylinders or cones or all sorts of different kinds of things like that. Really great stuff. Here's just your regular styrofoam foam. This stuff, if you're going to get a wire tool at any point, I highly suggest getting one with a temperature control here, because I can set this pretty low so that I can cut things like this without really crazy burning and stuff like that. You can tell it doesn't take much to cut through this kind of thing and make whatever shapes you like. It's really nice. I have that really quite low for this one. I'll just stuff that back under there for now. Let's see, I've got all the way from nothing to all the way up here, and I've got it way down there. But I'm going to turn it up just a little bit, let it warm up for a second here, because I want to cut a little bit more dense foam here. Depending on what kind of amount of detail you want to cut, what kind of shapes you need, how fast you typically work with the kind of thing, you'll want to readjust it. So I thoroughly suggest that you get a wire tool that has a temperature control, because one, speed and detail amount, that kind of thing is important, but also the densities of the foam. This is that real expanding, very, very lightweight foam that cuts like crazy, even on a relatively low temperature here. Great stuff. But you get to this more dense foam here comparatively. You can kind of tell the difference there. And it takes a little bit more temperature, and you got to go a little bit more slowly with it. Now it cuts pretty quick and nicely still. Turning on my fan because I want to make sure I don't I've got all my windows open and everything, and another fan in another room going to kind of pump the air through, but I've got to make sure I don't get any more of these fumes than I have to, because it can be toxic. You don't want to breathe any of this. There's that. Now I'll set that to the side. Now this is EVA foam. This is about a 1/4 inch thickness here. You can get this kind of thing. Some people call it Ava foam. But you can get this at, I think, the 1/8 inch kind of thickness. You can get it Hobby Lobby, that kind of thing. And I wanted it a little bit thicker for some of the other projects that I'm planning to do and things like that. But it's a foam too. However, it is a heck of a lot more dense and it's a little different plastic. So I'm actually turning the temperature all the way up on this one. Now, I don't suggest running the temperature all the way up for very long. Like half an hour is about as much as I really want to do. Because yes, it is built to be able to do that kind of thing, but it does start to warm up the temperature control box pretty thoroughly. And it's not my favorite idea to run things at the very top end for too long anyway, of course. But as you can tell, once I let that warm up while I was vamping for a second there, it'll actually cut through this pretty nicely too. You gotta go a little bit slower with this because even at top temperature on mine, it still doesn't just blow through it like the other foams do. In order to do this part, of course, as you could probably guess, I cut out the letters with a pair of scissors, then traced it with a Sharpie, just like you saw that I did for the other piece. Unfortunately, black foam with black Sharpie is not the easiest thing to see lines on. So it's not the optimal design idea. One of the other things that I would suggest for possibilities of this, if you're wanting to be a lot more accurate than I'm doing, you could always pin your design to, you can always pin your design to the foam with straight pins, and then very quickly airbrush spray over it is my go-to choice because it doesn't have all the crazy chemicals or anything in it to mess with it. Or you can do spray paint with it. However, be careful, you don't want to do spray paint on this kind of foam or this kind of foam at all, because spray paint has chemicals in it that eats the crap out of it. It will dissolve it and you will be very, very unhappy. Unless that's what you're looking for. And there are some other things I may make a video of at some point for that. Okay, so now what I did is I took all of my letters, I cut out the little holes with my hot knife here, and I'll show you what else I was doing with it, i.e. these wood grain ridges, or troughs more like, I guess. But first, what I did is I took these letters and I put some of this glue on it called barge glue. It's really good stuff. I really, really love this stuff. It was, I gather, originally designed and created for gluing the soles of shoes on, but it acts quite a lot like a rubber cement, except really hardcore. It's also kind of toxic, so be careful with it. Well vented. I don't know if you can hear it, but hiding back here, I've got my fan still going on. Blowing the fumes away and then evacuating out of the building, back where a bigger fan can be a lot harder to hear, thankfully. But what I did with this got even more fumey, because I took my hot knife here, got it plugged in, turned up pretty high temperature, little dial here on this one for that one. What this is actually marketed for wood burning. And it comes with this whole pack of lots of different bits and pieces and all that kind of thing. But really what I wanted was the X-Acto blade attachment at the end. You can screw the other types on anytime you want. But what it does is it heats it up, making it able to not only cut things a lot faster by heating it as well, but also to melt, as I'm going to show you, I suppose. So the basic idea here is that in order to get the kind of wood, the weathered wood grain, I'm trying to hold this at an angle so that it kind of does a angled trough into it is what I'm really going for. Because wood grain almost never is perfectly straight. Plus, this just makes it have a little bit more dimensionality to it. So I'm holding the blade at a really sharp angle like this, very acute line, so that it will heat and melt into the surface at an angle, allowing it to hold on to the paint that I'll put on in another step here in a little bit. Because I'll antique this, and I'll show you that in a little while. But first, I'm just going to draw a few more wild, wiggly kind of lines and things. I have to remember that lines on wood grain don't hardly ever go perfectly straight. So I'm trying not to. Plus, I'm trying to kind of exaggerate it a bit, kind of, fake knotted here and there kind of things to make it almost cartooned version of wood and how it works. Okay, so there we have it. So that's the foam work for it. I debated on whether or not I wanted to do the same kind of lines and things to the lettering as well, but I decided against it. Partially because I wanted the contrast between the wood kind of background and the smooth front pieces, but also because this doesn't treat this kind of foam as the same way it does the softer foam. If I were to use this kind of foam, it would be way faster, but it would also melt kind of blobby more so and not as nice. This kind of more dense insulation foam is a lot better choice. I like the blue stuff too. So yeah, now I've got that set up, and I'll get it primed with Kills and get it ready to paint some woodish kind of coloring on it, and my whatever color I decide to do for my lettering. I was thinking black, but we'll see. All right. And just like that, it's painted. Just like that. Yeah, well, no. As you can probably tell from the color of the sky, that is quite late in the night now. But what I did is I took the Kills paint, which I just left out in the garage because that's where I was painting everything. But Kills is great. It seals off and primes at the same time, which allowed me to take some spray paint primer and just fog that in real lightly, just to give it just a little bit of a kind of a pale wood plank kind of a base coat here. But Michael, you say, spray paint eats the crap out of foam. Well, yes it does. But if you give it just a thin layer to seal away the chemicals from the foam, it seems to work just fine. It really doesn't take a whole lot. I did an extraordinarily thin coat of Kills on here, so thin that you could kind of see through it, which is pretty thin for Kills. But then I sprayed it very lightly instead of just hosing it down or anything like that. Now, I'm trying to figure out what color I want the letters to be, and then I'll get to some painting here in a minute. But first, I need to cover up my nice table here and make sure I don't paint all of this stuff. So, I'll be right back. Okay, so I think I've got the right color, I think I'm going to go with a really nice moss green for most of the lettering. Then I'll do the flame and probably a golden, and that might be a little tacky. We'll see. Either way, I'll do some painting on it and then let you see what it looks like in the end. But I'll fast forward this boring stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to wash this whole thing now that it's left to dry for a while now. I'm going to wash it down with a dark brown. It's getting closer now. That's a little closer to what I was looking for. So, I'm going to wash up, take a nap, probably get back to this as soon as I get a little rest in me. Alrighty. Oop, got a drip down here. Okay, well, there it is in the far distant background on the bar. I think it looks really great. I'm really happy. I'm gonna have to see if I can take some video or something of it in blacklight, because I found my green blacklight paint and did quite a bit of touch-up paint at the end, and it looks really fun under the blacklight. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of that video in here to show you what it looks like, probably right about here. Well, here it is. I really like the way it turned out. Here you go. Pretty cool, huh? Up close, it's really kind of fun. Little details here and there. All I did for the hanger is take some 1/8 inch welding rod. You can get it at a hardware store anywhere. And I glued a piece of cardboard on the backside with my barge glue again. When I do more of these, I'm probably going to replace the cardboard with a piece of fabric instead, so it'll mold around a lot more easily. This was a little stiff, but turned out really well anyway, and it'll look really great on the bar, and I'm super happy with it. So thanks for joining me, and I really appreciate the fact that everybody wanted to sit through and watch me make some fun, cool stuff. Hopefully I'll get the chance to show you a whole bunch more cool, fun stuff in the future. Thanks again.